So trauma keeps you stuck in your emotional eating pattern. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And today I wanted to talk about how trauma keeps you stuck in your emotional eating pattern. And before I dive into this, I want you to really understand that trauma doesn't have to be as big and scary as it sounds. So trauma is on a spectrum. Trauma just means we experienced an event in our life and we were left feeling unresolved from it. And so that means that those emotions, they're unprocessed, how we felt about the situation, it just left this feeling that we couldn't move through. And this can be something really small to something really big. And the pattern that I see with clients is that they experience a lot of little t trauma. There are some clients that do have the bigger traumas, but even with the bigger traumas, what predated that or the predecessor to that were these little traumas building up over time and sort of snowballing into that. Small traumas, and I don't think they're small, but they look like when we were children, not being seen, heard, validated, understood with what was going on for us. Whatever emotional distress we were going through, we were not validated and guided through that. So our parents weren't in a calm state to help us navigate that. They weren't able to help us regulate our own nervous system, come back to calm, and create a new way forward. When we are in a situation and there's no resolution, that leaves our body in a state of distress. There's a lot of uncomfortable emotions. We don't feel safe, and we wouldn't want to live in our body if it feels like that. And if we experience these smaller traumas, that's what happens in our body. We're almost in this low-lying, agitated state that can become triggered, and we're more aware of it, but it's almost always there playing out under the surface. And for us, and what I see for clients, is that their emotional eating began in childhood because they would have had this discomfort and they needed a way to cope. So coping doesn't resolve the situation. It's a band-aid, but it helps us, survive and move through those conditions that we couldn't have done anything else because we needed our parents and caregivers to model to us how to be with this. We needed that developmentally. It's not something we just innately know. It's something we would have developmentally needed to have seen and been guided through. This is an important thing to take note of because if you don't have those tools from a young age, you keep coping with life to a point where your coping no longer serves you. So when you're an emotional eater, you're coping and using food to deal with this discomfort because of this trauma. And so you are then in this snowball of trying to feel okay. But part of the way we feel okay is to be seen and heard and validated and accepted. If we're using food to soothe ourselves, it can show up as weight gain, as digestive issues, as all of these issues in the body. We're trying to control food because now we're obsessed with food. So we go to the diets and the exercise plans. We think if we look a certain way, we're going to be accepted and we'll finally get the love and validation that we're really seeking, that we weren't given at a younger age. And so this is all coping, trying to cope with this trauma. And as you can see, it's something very small, not small, but the seed was planted and now we have all of these coping mechanisms. And what I see with emotional eaters is that they have this coping with food, but because they cope with food, now their relationship to food is off. Their relationship to their body is off because now their body is holding these traumas, and the relationship to their emotions, which live in the body, is off. It's dysfunctional. And so all of these areas need to be addressed. And this is how trauma impacts us as emotional eaters. It's not that you go and do trauma therapy and you figure out all of your trauma for your whole life. It doesn't work that way. There are specific things tied into your emotional eating pattern. And so as you learn the tools to resolve that, you can start putting it into other areas of your life, but emotional eating doesn't work for you. So we want to work with the specific traumas with your emotional eating pattern. So how do we find that? Because we are now using food to soothe, you can't remove food from your life. You have a body, you can't remove your body. You have emotions. We need to learn how to actually be with these emotions, with food, our body in a healthy way, and look at the unhealthy ways we have been using food, have been using our body and our emotions. And so what this looks like, this unhealthy way that is created from this trauma is that with food, we tend to be dieters and restricting and controlling food. And we feel like this is good, this is bad. We punish ourselves around food because if we can control food, we can control our body and we can get the love and acceptance that we're looking for if we fit into that box. And so we have to now actually create a relationship to food that helps our body, that supports our body. It doesn't mean we're going to gain weight because the diets and the restrictions actually put our body into a fight or flight response, into a stress state that over time makes us gain weight, have digestive issues, have inflammation. It walks us down this path, but it gives us those instant results. And so we think this is the key to success. The other way that we're not having healthy relationships is with our body. So now we're trying to manipulate our body, maybe through exercise, through overworking it, through restricting food from it, shaming it to try to get it to fit into a certain box because then we can be accepted and validated. And so that in and of itself is not us connecting to our body. It's us really attaching our worth to how our body looks and what it has to do. Once we remove that and we have body acceptance, all of that stress of that way, because we're really in survival mode in all of these ways, trying to push and punish our body, that puts our body into more ease and peace, which is the nervous system we want to be in to help with regulation, to help with digestive issues, with weight loss, with improving our immunity. And then the third way that we obviously have trauma around is with our emotions because we weren't modeled how to be with them. And those emotions are triggering our emotional eating. And so we need to learn to actually meet our true needs with our emotions to really process and integrate them at a body level and learn a new way forward that is not food. Because right now, the association we have is that pain or uncomfortable emotions or distress makes us automatically go to food. There's this association with it because that's how we coped and survived. We need to actually start giving ourselves what we need. And when we meet those true needs, the food, the band-aid of food will no longer serve us. We have been using and being with our emotions in a very unhealthy way. We push them down with food, but we most likely bypass them, try to ignore them. We don't know how to be with them. And food tends to be the only outlet we have. So all of these areas are impacted by our emotional eating, and we need to find the healthy ways that connect with us so that we can actually see the pattern, the deeper traumas. So there's going to be trauma around food, our connection to food, because now we have this diet mentality. And so our brain and our way of thinking is like, I have to restrict because my worth and value is in the size of my body. And the same with our body and with our emotions. Maybe it is hard to be with those emotions. Maybe it is uncomfortable, but even those emotions, they tie in with the food and the body. Because with our emotions, our limiting beliefs of how we think about ourselves, the shame spiral, how we have to be with food in our body and our emotions. So we limit ourselves. And so this is all in the package of trauma. This is all creating this unresolved feeling in us that we're not getting to the end. We feel out of control. We feel agitated. We feel unease in our body. And the way to mitigate trauma is to actually start working, like I said, with these areas in a healthy way. So you're creating that new relationship to it, but also digging and getting into the root of what created this. Because if we only have this new way of relating to food, our body, and our emotions and understanding them, maybe on an intellectual level without getting into the body, we don't shift the pattern because now it's so ingrained in our body. We have to shift it. We have to get into the roots of it, be with it, clear it out, and really clean it up and almost like pull the root out and plant something new in there. And that's through us moving through our emotions, giving ourselves what we actually need and meeting our true needs and seeing what next steps are best for us. And this is how we get through this trauma under our emotional eating pattern. It's not about being intuitive. It's not about any of this. We need to be step by step connecting back to food, our body, and our emotions in order to resolve this pattern. And this is what we do inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program. It is a step-by-step process guiding you to connecting back to food, your body, and your emotions, getting into that deeper level of this pattern and resolving it at the root. because there are layers to this pattern. And when you do this, you physically feel ease and peace in your body. You feel more confident around food. And so this is the goal, and this is the process of the program. So if you're interested in that, you can find out more below. But as a first step, I always recommend you learning to discern true from emotional hunger and catching your trigger. So I have a free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? In this guide, you do exactly that. You start learning the difference between true hunger and emotional hunger and noticing when you're triggered into this pattern. So if you'd like that free guide, you can download it below. And so if you have any questions about what I've shared with you today, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And I look forward to sharing more with you. And I hope you have a great day.